28 minutes. And I'd like to have just 2 minutes at the end to for some housekeeping. I guess you all have spokespersons, yes? Might we start with the motherhood parenting group?
Natasha, I can do it if you really don't want to.
So I'm open to this being a collaborative share. So let me just first say that I love the engagement with my group. I think that was like that deep dive coming into the space that I look forward to in terms of, again, just the stimulating conversation. So lots of gratitude for my group members. But in terms of like sharing out, it's hard to, think about like what to share out because it felt like it was so specific to us in the conversation. And so I want to, also name that we did not get to talk about, and not that it was personal, but at the same time, we didn't get consensus on like what was going to be shared in terms of like that collective share out to the group. So I guess if it's okay for me to just name and hold space that we had a great discussion. And you named the smile because again, for me, I think coming into this space today, that is what I was looking forward to. And so, Leah, if you want to add anything else.
No, that was excellent.
We respect that and honor that. Anybody else from the group wants to say something? No? Okay, thank you for that. Glad you're having, engaging in deep conversations. That's the whole premise of this affinity group arrangement. How about the faith-based communities group?
Yes, that was myself, Mana, and Marcia. So we had a really rich conversation. It wasn't long enough to talk about the ways we're considering IFS and in our approaches. But I think a few of the things we discussed about being able to share back was just the ways we introduce IFS to the different contexts we go in and how much like personal experience is a natural way into opening up space to discern what to share and how to share with people, how deep it can go or not go. But just through kind of sharing one's own story, listening to the story of another kind of can provide openings for that. And then we also talked about, at least in our themed group, looking at IFS in a spiritual way. And so obviously there's debates and discussions around, if it's spiritual, what ways, how do we talk about that? So wanting to be sensitive to all those dynamics, and especially when we talked about like kind of what are resistances to that, especially for people who have had any kind of spiritual or religious abuse in their lives, how important it is to be sensitive to those dynamics when discussing IFS and the spiritual dynamics of it. And so we talked about that as well, and a lot more. So I welcome group members to share if anything else that was feels good to share. But was really grateful for what we discussed together.
Anything to add from Mona or Marcia?
Just one more point that we thought there was a lot of space for inter and intra-faith dialogue.
Thank you for that. And Isaiah, I hope you're catching on some sleep since last month, I hope the baby's giving you time to rest a little bit. Mona, is your affinity group membership just for today, or this is something you choose and it's fine? And if you do, just make the adjustment in the spreadsheet, not that you have to belong to one, not the other, but this way we can make the assignment a bit more fluid in the future. Thank you. How about K-12 schools?
Okay, I wasn't here last time. I'm naming that because it's something I'm feeling myself. But so we did a little bit of like reintroduction and trying to find spaces where we all aligned. It seems like everyone is kind of already in the middle of something. which is interesting. And it was really cool to hear about the ways in which people are already leveraging their knowledge to try to impact young folks. I also think something that I'm walking away with is just a sense of like when you try to take a model and make it fit to little people, like how concrete things can get. Like it's, as a person who has worked in schools my entire career, it's something I always enjoy. And it was cool to connect with other folks that are kind of thinking through the same things. What would I have wanted to know when I was little? And given where we are as a society, in terms of calling to tie directly entertainment and things that take students' attention, like how do we stay relevant within that? And then possible spaces for collaboration, because a lot of the work that we're all doing kind of lends itself well to whatever everyone else is doing.
Thank you, Kat. Anything else from that group? How about racial justice? And of course, if there are questions or comments you want to make for others, you can do them now. You can do them at the end. Racial justice organizations?
We didn't talk about a person, but I can talk if people in our group are okay with that. Yeah. Okay. We had a really great conversation about a lot of it was just talking about like practical barriers and things that we've learned from working with the groups that we've worked with, talking about how do we break down jargon, like IFS jargon, into language that's relatable to our communities. How do we bracket our own parts when working with other people's parts? What are some of our sort of practical and strategic methods to using this work in our communities that feels relatable? Or I keep using the word practical. I guess what I mean by that is like, because we have such different communities, what does language really mean to your community? How is it? And then we also talked about kind of like some group members were talking about how they had been specifically turned off by, for example, the first time they heard about IFS, or the first time that they had been introduced with this like really technical jargon. And so we're really kind of doing a lot of like deconstructing language together. How did I do, y'all, in my group?
You did good. You did good. You did good. And I think the just before we got ready to end it, we started to talk a little bit about how people may already feel like there's something wrong with them because of race and that kind of thing, and introducing something that may be over their heads. We don't know what the impact of that would be, but we didn't really get a chance to talk much about race at all this time. It was just generalities of what our communities look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Allow me to make some comments in response to what I heard, and that's certainly language is critical, right? Because we communicate with language, among other ways of communicating, perhaps. And I want to clarify something, because sometimes you hear it, day after day, month after month. There's no attempt by the foundation, at least through this program, to push out the model, right? We're not seeing you as people whose job is to distribute IFS into the world. Our job collectively and individually, perhaps, is to help facilitate self-empowerment, right? Individual resilience. Help people find a path to true healing, right? And that's how we together might help change the world, if the world so chooses. It's an offering. IFS happens to be a vehicle, a possibility, a way to look at the human psyche, a way to look at each other's interactions. help us elevate beyond the conflict itself and put the conflict in a different context. That's how we're looking at IFS, as one of many possible ways to look at the world. That's why when Gloria, early on, you were talking about the language being too idiosyncratic, you know, founders, authors, developers create things because these things resonate with them. And often they stick as the language for the model. You can call it whatever you want, and you might not even have to call it anything. What's important is that you look at it for yourselves as a way to navigate adversity or take advantage of opportunity or create alignment with whatever you need to create alignment with, within or with others, and help others see differently. It's like almost like a hot air balloon. Come join me, take a look at this whole situation from outside. Because that's what it takes sometimes, you know. Pause, get out of the situation, and look at it from a completely different point of view. Right?
Yes, right.
Everything else is something you need to figure out how to do within your own setting. You know, you mentioned firefighters, managers, protectors. These are specific to a given, you know, view, maybe a protocol. What's important to me is what are the larger principles, right, that might help you and might help others. And you can come up with them, right? The non-judging part or element. The fact that all aspects are welcome. But put that into practice, back to your practical aspect, Megan, because that's what's key here. You know, how do we practicalize, if that's the word? How do we concretize all this and take it out of the psychotherapy book or the protocol itself? It's a worldview, right? And it's not the only worldview, and it's not so unique, right? Parts work's been around forever, long before IFS. And the notion of self, it has existed and pre-existed IFS in different settings, in different spiritual traditions. IFS is just the way to put it all together. And at the end of the day, it gives me hope. Someone, you know, Gloria, you called yourself hope, right? It gives me hope as the individual that, wow, I can get there. I can find a way to heal. It gives me hope that I can rise above the conflict. And if I know how to do that, others might be able to follow suit. So I just want to put this in context, that I don't want anybody to feel obligated or even pressured in any way, shape, or form to use the existing language. Feel free to do so if it suits you, if it fits your setting, your condition. Otherwise, I encourage you with all your creative elements to come up with ways that would work for you in your given context. I don't know if that makes any sense. I just
That
felt
makes good
obligated
sense.
to
That
comment.
really makes good sense, because I was thinking as we were leaving the meeting, you know, I'm a lot into now racial healing, and maybe somehow use this tool to assist in the racial healing of the wounds that we have experienced in this country, you know, just some kind of way to use it that way.
Yeah. So I encourage you to think about what IFS means to you. What are some of the interesting notions, cognitive or some other ways that you can borrow from? And listen, when it comes to psychotherapy per se, there's probably a protocol that seems to work experientially over the years. I'm not saying don't follow the protocol, whether the 6 Fs or the whatever, right? All I'm saying is, in this new place where we're bringing IFS, we have plenty of space, plenty of flexibility, and we need to support each other as we explore and expand this boundary a little. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Might we go to university setting?
Yeah, so okay. So I'm the spokesperson. I hope I do justice to the wise members of my group, with Richard and Tamika. You know, as I was thinking about how to present this, I was thinking about how this work is a process and evolution. Sometimes I think we live in a society that wants things to go fast, fast, fast. And what I realized is this work is slow in process and evolves. And, last time we met, I spoke to Richard about his process and what he was doing at the university. Richard is a doctorate candidate at Buffalo, and that's where he's going to do most of his project. And now today, the process a month now is like he's narrowed. And it was just beautiful to really hear how he's narrowed it down. But some of the things that, and I'll just speak to what Richard said because it was so amazing. He was looking at the micro system and the macro system in a university system and looking at the individual versus the group and how are parts going to interact. And he's just looking at his population. First, it was all graduates. Now it's graduates that may have issues with belonging in a university setting or may have issues. Do I really belong here? And I thought that was amazing to narrow it down to a group where he can offer a lot of what he wants to offer in terms of IFS. And I like this sense of belonging in a university setting because I know a lot of students, because I work in a university setting, that often struggle with that issue. So when Richard narrowed it down, it was like it just resonated with me and with a lot of the students that I meet. And I also love the process of evolution, that from one month to now, the narrowing down and the looking at micro and macro systems was really amazing. Richard, anything you want to add to that? No?
No, you did good. Thank you.
Okay. And then Tamika is in a faith-based academic institution. And I mean, I wish I could share all the things that Tamika shared because it was just she has just so much wisdom. But we talked about IFS theory in terms of systemically, when you're working in an academic institution, how you introduce this. Academic settings are not easy settings. And when I spoke to you once, Tofik, you kind of really understood that because I'm in an academic setting. And so how do you transfer all this theory to systemically to the institution? And something that Tamika said that stayed with me was she said, manager parts show up not as individuals, but as policies and procedures. And I was like, wow, and the main point that Tamika also wanted to make and share is how do we lead with compassion and creativity and how to be in relationship with the community as a whole that we're serving. And, that stayed with me. I personally love my managers. I appreciate what my managers do for me. I call them my mentors. I call my firefighters my advocate. And when Tamika said that about manager parts, my manager wrote an 11-page document about my community project that I really love, How might I implement it? I have no idea, but I know this is a process and evolution. I cannot stop my parts to do what they want to do. They're helping me. And then I'll evaluate it and figure it out. So that's what I share with them. I said, I'm doing it in an institution with graduate students, but there are parts of me that want to go into the field department and share IFS with them because I know it's going to help them help students. Even though I want to do it with graduate students only, I do know that the system is important. And I think that's what Tamika was addressing and Richard, that we go from micro to macro, So we might be interested in the micro, but we can't ignore the macro. And how are we going to do? So anyway, it's a great discussion. And I trust this process. I don't force things to be other than they are because I know they'll lead me to the place that we're going to get to. And just watching today's evolution kind of reminded me to trust the process.
Thank you for that honesty. And I'm hoping you invite some of the parts of you who maybe aren't very vocal and are maybe intimidated by your managers. The parts that maybe want you to slow down a little bit or pause or take a moment to look at things and evaluate the effect producing such an extensive document might have, that sort of thing. So that's part of our own inner work. Right. Taking a look at why we do what we do, what it means to do the things we do, and bring some balance right? Because we have polarization. It's not always obvious. But if we always do the same thing the same way, then maybe it's a sign, right? That we have parts that are taking over the ship. And they're great parts and with great talent, and we love them and we want them, right? But the question is at the expense of what other parts, at what cost? Right? So it's not an easy answer, and it's not a simple process.
Yeah, and that was the discussion, and that's why I liked when Tamika said that the manager parts sometimes show up in policies and procedures. I knew that my managers needed to create some kind of structure, but also I work in an academic setting, and this that I do, this fellowship, it doesn't go easy. I have to prove what I'm doing to my academic institution.
Sure.
And it goes in writing. So my managers know that this is not a free ride for me. This is like, what are you doing? What are you doing with your time? Blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I just want to know if Tamika and Richard want to share anything else besides what I shared.
Not from my end. That was great. Thank you so much.
Okay, Tamika.
I was
Thank
going to
you.
add that we had a nice discussion also about who is this family that we speak of in an organizational sense when applying a family oriented, like the system, like who are these people and how are they related? We really started digging in. We tapped in a little bit of family systems theory, but it was just a rich conversation as we're looking at community and really trying to figure out like who is in the community and how are they relating.
Yeah, and I just want to share on that. So Tofik, I read this incredible article. I'm interested in family. Well, Richard Short's created IFS based on family systems theory. So if you read on family systems theory, you're like in shock because it relates so much to IFS, And I love to look at emotional systems within organizations and how they conflict with each other, how people, get upset. And there's this great article on the congregation as an emotional system. And Tamika is in a faith-based academic setting, so I was kind of sharing that and how much I've learned about systems based on family systems theory, and then how much I look at IFS and it's so similar and it's just so amazing. But there's a reason why things happen in systems. And I'm always looking about how groups interact with each other and what comes up. And so that we ended up talking a little bit about that.
Wonderful. And we'll talk a little bit in a future gathering about extrapolating IFS as an individual system onto a larger system. A corporate setting, an organizational setting. There is a way to translate that. It's not proven, it's not been done, but I can share with you some thoughts and how that might help you look at it organizationally as well. We have one more, and then I want to just do some housekeeping. So, human service organization.
Hi, I'm the spokesperson, and I just want to say that the human services group was not feeling like serving humans today. We have low energy. All of us had very low energy, but we did the best that we could, and we were very specific about the topic. And I think that has a lot to do with how we're all feeling today. So we really just answered the questions and limited conversation, which is not something that I would normally do, but this is how it goes today.
No problem. I'm sorry. I'm smiling because I saw Kat's chat. I wasn't being disrespectful to you.
So we have most of us have been able, or there's 3 of us in the group. Most of us have been able to discuss this model with our circle of influence or the people that we work with. I am a therapist, so of course, it's just people want to hear all about it. And so most of us have been able to. There have been some barriers with one of us, and I don't even want to call it a barrier. I just want to say the challenge is to kind of understand your own self and work on self energy before attempting to present to the external, outside of yourself, external populations. everyone has felt that the model has been very effective in how we see ourselves, how we relate to ourselves, and how we relate to others. Specifically, not holding on to baggage as much, or being able to compartmentalize in a healthy way, which allows us to communicate and to present ourselves a lot more as more stable. I'll speak for myself, more stable in the world. Barriers. There's a couple of things I wrote down. Oh, and Zenot wanted me to say that each of us is trying to feel our way into what our specific projects may be. This means that we're not specific yet, not really. None of us have, I don't want to say we don't have a clue, but, you know, if I said that we don't have a clue, then that would be correct. I don't want to say it, but if I said it, that would be it. So we're all working on that. Another question that we had, and I think to think that you answered this, is what the expectations are of us in this fellowship. So there was some anxiety producing conversation about what am I supposed to do, what is expected of me, and I think that you really spoke to that. And so there is an understanding that we get to go at our own pace. And I think Marva had spoken about we talked about the circle, you know, the pegs and the circle peg and the square hole, and trying to make things fit. And I think that that goes against everything IFS. So our plan, as we say it today, is that we will continue to do the work that we're doing in the organizations that we're in. And the way that we plan on entering our, whatever our specific journey is going to be, is through already existing organizations. None of us right now feel like we're going to recreate the wheel. But there are enough organizations in place where we can gain entry that way and begin to discuss the model. It is my specific hope that I will be able to move into some of the nonprofits that we have in Fresno and begin to just talk about the model in hopes that people will have more willingness to, or more curiosity about how this could affect their lives, you know, and the lives of the people that they work with. Specifically, we talked about
Trevette, I'm looking at the time, and I do not want to make anybody uncomfortable by having to stay longer, or you by cutting you short.
No, it's good. We're good. I think that I said everything that I needed to say. I could go on, but then everyone knows me and knows that I can always go on. So, and this is me in low energy. So,
well, I appreciate your candor, and I empathize with the group that felt low energy. I think all of us support each other when we're down, and I appreciate you joining us and engaging in spite of that. Let me just make one point in closing, that this is not one size fits all approach. There's no specific expectation in terms of you shall have a plan of action and then it'll have 5 different elements and so on and so forth. This is here to inspire you, engage you, stretch your thinking and your comfort zone a little bit, make connections with others, and end up maybe with something you will do that's very meaningful that you hadn't considered before with your existing community, your existing organization, or if you want to reinvent the wheel, we'll support you in doing so. So I just want to make that very clear, that we want to have you come up with some plan, but it's going to be so different between yours and the one next to you that there's no one package that we're expecting, right? And I'm convinced, right? And I hope I'm not saying it arrogantly. I'm convinced that at the end of this experience, because of this exchange, because of what we're telling each other and what we're sharing with each other, you're going to get to a place that you wouldn't have anticipated. And if that's the case, we're all very pleased with the outcome. So leave with that in mind, with no undue pressure, maybe some tough love that we can give each other in the process, if you think it helps. And we want to invite those of you who want to share your plans of action when ready to do so, and we'll share with you between the meetings what that might look like. If you want to do it on a video, if you want to do it during the gatherings, we can do that, because I promise that there'll be an opportunity for those of you who want to share, that you'll have a little time to share with your colleagues where you are. So Julia's going to be sending some information out for you to respond to, so we can start planning this approach. And I think Julia may have told you that she would regret not being with us today. She had another obligation that had been pre-scheduled. So anything anybody would like to add or share before we close?
I think I just want to say really quick, what if, this is a part of me, what if our plan of action is simply that we take IFS into everything we do moving forward?
Okay, if this is your plan, and by doing so you believe you'll have some impact within your life, on you if nothing else, I see no reason that shouldn't be the issue. The reason we didn't say, folks, take level 1 and all the best, is because we're in a new territory. And our intention as a foundation is to figure out how to help the world heal itself beyond psychotherapy, right? So if that's all you end up doing, and I'm not saying this all as in too little, you have our blessing. I mean, listen, there's no final exam here, Leah. It's all about what you want to do with this learning, with this discovery. Anybody else would like to chime in what Leah said before we close? I do not know where this is going, right? We have a vision, and it's very flexible. It's like, it's a whole horizon. Where we're going to end up depends on all of you, and it'll be welcome. All horizons are welcome, and I hope it's a horizon. It's lovely to see you and hear from you. We appreciate the time you're taking and the thoughtfulness you're putting into this.
Just one quick thing. Yes, is it possible for us to start a Google document to track who intends to participate at the conference?
Yes, please do, Latasha. Would you mind starting that?
Okay.
Very good. Wonderful. Thank you. Until June, I don't know if any of you know Kate Lindgren. She'll be with us as a facilitator for her piece of the workshop. Kate was the founder of the DEI committee and been on it for 7 years or so, and she's a wonderful facilitator. She has a lot to talk to us about conflict transformation. We hope to see you then, last Sunday in June. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Tawfiq. Bye, everyone. Be well.
Bye.
Thank you,
All the
Tawfiq.
best. Thank you. Thank you, Pilar.
Of course, glad I could help.
Until June. You're gonna be gone one of those Sundays, right? August?
July.
July. Okay. Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
We'll see you in June then. And
See you in
hopefully,
June.
I think Julia is getting a substitute, right?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Julia is looking for a Zoom tech for July. Is she?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, and then you'll communicate with her and maybe you can do a little transfer of knowledge for that
Right.
person. Okay,
Sounds good.
thanks a whole lot, Pilar. Take good
Have
care.
a good rest of your weekend.
You do the same. Bye-bye.